Morning Book Club. We are covering the book The Devil and Karl Marx, and today we're going to do chapters 7 and 8. I know I said 9, but we're not going to get to 9 today because there's just so much, and we really try to cram this into exactly an hour. My guests today are my friends Brooke Stevens and Joelle. I'm not going to pronounce your name right. Mancuso. Sorry about that. And we're just going to start digging in. I think that this book is so relevant to today as we watch a lot of people pretend to be one thing and very much stand for something else. And so we'll see that. What I do every week is go through the same kind of process of showing you exactly the source. What I love about Paul, oh my goodness, his last name, Kengor, right? So what I love about his book is that he's constantly putting the exact sources in. He's putting quotes even down to misspellings, and he'll say that this was originally misspelled this way, and that's the way I'm going to put it in the book. So I think I just think it's great to be so authentic. So what are you guys' original just thoughts before we get started and I start sharing? Go ahead. Brick, you're silenced.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Just go and I'll join the fray because this is crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I think you can't help but read this book and read what has happened in the history about the infiltration of the churches and realize that it's been going on much longer than we think because we only have our present experience. So I believe that the general public, my opinion, of course, is that they think this has just happened in the last 10 years, maybe the 2000s. And it's been going on for such a long time that reading through this book and you're seeing the 1920s and 30s, and you're realizing that this long march is much longer than we all thought. And it's just, you realize why they don't teach Marxism, this type of history in our schools is
yes,
you would see it. And
that's the key.
And now we have a whole generation of people that are now in leadership ages, 30s, 40s, 50s, that just have no context to what's going on. Otherwise, they would see it with 2020 vision.
Yeah, that's the key, is this has been stripped from our education. We are dumb and we are not able to preserve our freedom because we don't understand the enemy.
If you can't see it, you can't address it.
Yeah. And I think it was on purpose because I remember learning and even watching my son, who just recently graduated, learning about the quote Red Scare. And that's how I learned about it. I learned, wow, these people were really terrible and persecuted these people who had no reason that they should have ever been persecuted. That's what Hollywood told us. And that's what was in school.
Yeah, right? It was a witch hunt. It was a witch hunt. That's what I learned.
Yes.
And I'm the oldest one here. So that has been firmly implanted from late 60s.
Right. And now you sit there and you're reading their actual context.
Yeah.
And you're going, this doesn't look like a witch hunt to me. So let's just get into it. It says, starting off, it is instructive that this part of the book is the longest. The meticulous efforts at infiltration and manipulation recorded here were at the core of what Marxism was about and what communists did. The sources spoke at length and under oath. These individuals gave significant testimonies that duly earned headlines for their day. And then I think the next big thing to jump to is that they called them the biggest suckers of them all. And I think we're watching that again, or maybe it never stopped, but we just weren't tuned into it before. But I think that the fact that a group of people came into churches and made sucker lists is it tells you exactly where they stood.
Well, and it's like, yeah, the suckers were those who believed in God, who were not atheists and believed in communism, because you can't believe in both at the same time. Because the
Yes.
main power of communism is that you do not believe in God. You believe in the power of the state, which is really the power of the gang type government. It's not even a government, it's a gang. It functions as a gang. And
Yes.
so
That's a good
the suckers were,
analogy.
you're believing two things that are incompatible, completely incompatible at the same time. What struck me in reading this was the necessity of being able to discern truth. If you cannot discern truth, then you will be duped. And so that they use all the terms to make it think, and you know, the way they infiltrated the Catholic Church, and they call them the Judas.
Yes.
And
Let me
here's
see
the
if I can
thing.
find that.
It's like, oh, I don't want to believe anybody in my church would be like that. That is so unchristlike of me to think that there may be. But there was purpose in Christ having a Judas in his 12 apostles. It was a signal to us that among those whom you work with, you need to be aware. You need to be aware that you can't see their hearts. They may have different purposes. And so that's what they were doing in the Catholic Church. They were setting up Judases. They were looking for them. They called everybody else idiots for believing two incompatible thoughts at the same time.
Well, so here's exactly the term. Catholics would have been aghast to know that the identity of these moles in their ranks. So what they did is they went into these French groups. They went into groups like Knights of Columbus, and Sacred Heart. So that was the female Catholic group. And they put them in and they said the party comrade is the type that communists used to refer to in those days as the Judas goat. That is, and this is what communists were calling their own person that they put in. That is the betrayer. In this case, the Judas goat was working for the Communist Party and betraying the church.
Well, they even called themselves the Anti-Communist Party.
Yes.
When they were in there working to make them communists.
Yes.
And so their terms were the exact opposite of what they actually were. And I think of Mormon Women for Ethical Government. I'm like, okay, so here we have it. And you're saying the name, you're anti-communist, you're saying ethical government, but you're trying to take it down. And so, you know, it's just so much we can learn from history that we are not having in any of our schools. Kids are not being taught this. This is there loud and clear. He's reading all the transcripts from these documents. And it's like, we could easily, just by reading these transcripts, have amazing conversations with kids to help them be aware of this. We cannot preserve our liberty if we don't have this information, and we don't have it in our schools.
And that, again, is intentional. There was a couple of years ago when some dissidents came and said, we want to teach how communism and specifically socialism started. And these people who say they're not the same thing, I love that. And we will get to a quote on it, because they made the terms both socialist and then they changed to the term progressive. So
well, can I also add that
yes.
FDR, they tried to convince FDR. I don't know if he was Catholic or not.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you need to fight against the communists. He's like, oh, no, I need to worry about the fascists.
Right.
And it's like, wait a second. Both are tyrannical. Both are using fear to govern the people, stripping them of their rights. Yeah, the Nazis rewrote the Bible. You know what I mean? So they technically have a Bible. They put their own words in it. But there is no difference between fascism and communism in my book, because both are run by tyrants, and it's the absence of liberty. And so for that distinction even to be there to deceive people,
yes.
It's like FDR was like, oh, no, that's not the problem. They're so devilishly subtle, you know?
Yeah.
Can you look at page 168?
Yeah.
Bring that up. That's in chapter 7.
Yeah, I'm almost there, I think. Oh, wait, sorry.
Before we leave 7 behind, I wanted to.
Yes, go ahead.
The American Peace Mobilization was secretly founded in 1940 through a literal conspiracy between the Soviet and American communists with social justice. Gee, that term we hear a lot now.
Right.
Social justice pastors the chief target for exploitation. The group's goal was to keep America out of World War II and to push President Franklin Roosevelt to accommodate Hitler. The reason I wanted to bring that up is it's interesting, the twisting and turning, right, of things. So they take one I think a lot of people probably didn't want to go to war necessarily. And so they take one thing that people are very passionate about and then they connect it to the other thing, which they're trying to get through the door, right?
Right.
Trying to get in, which was communism. But let's rally around something else. So it's a little more, so we can get our rah-rah team and everyone jumps into the net, so to speak. And that's what's happening now. It's that's the discerning part that Brooke brought up, is you have to have discernment of what am I being asked to join here. And I think when we see these riots and rallies and you see all these older people, the white women over 50 who are so compassionate, with that toxic compassionate thread, because they care about people, but then they're forgetting about the whole thing that's connected to it. And that's what that reminded me is exactly the tactic they're using, is preying upon the compassion of those they know they can get.
Well, that's what's so interesting, because as you're saying, social justice, and they talk about how they go down to the numbers. There are this many Catholics. This is how many we need to get to change things within the Catholic Church. This is our goal. Well, today, there's a study that says that right now, all of these groups, all of this propaganda, the mom glow woman, these different people, they are targeting women specifically for the same reasons, or in the same exact way. So that's why this has been a jaw-dropping book, because you sit there going, whoa, this is exactly what's happening 100 years later.
Yeah, it's the same tactics. It's the exact same thing, and when he was interviewing, I forget names pretty easily, but the one guy who was unrepentant, do you remember? He was talking, and there's the rest of them saw the light and came to. And then
that's Foster, who we're on his page, William Z. Foster.
Okay, yeah. So the one guy who was unrepentant, and he was like, he would still defend it. And anyway, I forget what I was going to say. But I liked that the other people came. That gave me hope. Because I'm like, how can you bring people to say, you've been duped? I mean, that's what they called them. You have been duped. You are believing something that cannot coexist. You think you're using your empathies to believe this. You believe in, that's why they targeted Christians. Right. It's because they say, hey, we'll bring in these things that cannot coexist without God. The underlying thing of communism is no God whatsoever. It's the state, and it's the rulers of the state. It's not the people at all.
Right. So it says this is a pernicious position, yet the peace mobilization, again, they're words, right? They're constantly using words that anybody would say. They're very good at their messaging. And I think we need to listen to that. They're very, very good at their messaging.
Always. It's a war on words.
Yes.
Yeah, the peace mobilization, which suddenly became pro-war. So they were actually pro-Hitler before. But the minute Hitler betrayed Stalin and invaded the USSR and then brazenly changed its name to the American People's Mobilization, not a whole lot different than the American workers, they had more success with peace-loving, turn-the-other-cheek liberal Christians than any other group by far and away. Progressive, there's that word, progressive Protestant pastors were the primary target. The New York Times described the American Peace Mobilization not as a communist front, but as a group of clergymen. So again, you've got, look at the press. The press was already working for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, they knew to get it in, and they're like, hey, this is a good thing. You have one guy in there. You just need one guy or lady or whatever it is who is friends with everybody, who brings them coffee in the morning, who brings them donuts. He's a nice guy. I mean, this is in the seriously, this is in the playbook. And then everybody trusts him. Oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Yes, let's be more welcome and opening to this organization that aims to take us down, because he brings us coffee in the morning, you know.
Yeah. And that's what this, so it says, as for these pastors, if these presumably sincere Christians knew how badly they were used to advance the worst of evils, again, these are people who would have said they were anti-communist.
Yeah, that was in their name.
Yes.
For the Catholics.
Yeah, for the Catholic ones.
Yeah.
I do want to go into some of the things that Foster said, because he was a real peach.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
To read the Screw Tape Letters. If you want to understand the weaving of how you can be distracted and led down a path, that is C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters. Screw Tape Letters.
Yes.
That with Wormwood, and I tell you, that's that if you really want to understand how it can be done so in a twisted way, that's a great thing to read. And it's a small read, so if anyone's watching and think, I can't do another book, it's actually it's an easy read. So also I would suggest that you purchase Bibles that were printed a little while ago, just because they're going to start changing the Bibles. So just so you know. And I would also, because of all the words that have been changed over the last couple decades, I would get a Noah Webster's 1828 dictionary.
Yeah.
If you really want to remember what words mean, because those words have been significantly changed. If you look up marriage or family or woman for this, you're going to get such a different definition. If you want to keep hold of what's real and true, I would suggest getting that 1828 dictionary. I have one in my house. And so whenever we're really want to drill down to a word, because words matter now, we'll pull that out and compare it. It's part of the layers of finding truth. So that would be my suggestion. Bible, dictionary.
Well, even though we might have the accurate definition of the word so that we can function and communicate in life, they're willingly and knowingly using the opposite word to trick people.
Sure.
So it's such in your face lie. It's a complete and total lie. And they have no qualms about that.
That is probably the most frustrating thing for me, is because they won't just be honest. Because if they were, people would not be okay with it. I heard somebody say the other day that using low voltage shot gloves was communism. And I responded, no, actually, communism would not allow people to go back to their home, because they would have no home left.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know what you're talking about, low voltage shock gloves.
Oh, it's something that they're talking about using to remove people from the country.
Oh.
It's a locus of control. As soon as they're in contact with someone, is that they can render them, that gives them the ability to get them out of a situation really quick.
Yeah.
So you have a shot glove and you touch somebody, you could definitely move that individual to where you need to go.
It stops some of the resistance. But regardless, it's just a matter of, these people will say one little line, well, that sounds like communism to me. And a bunch of people who have been taught that, one, to fear communism is silly, right? Because we have a bunch of people, my generation, like all of our generations, have been taught to fear communism is silly. It is just a scare tactic. When the reality is that it is they are extremely intentional in what they're doing. And those people involved in it have no problem with lying. I'm thinking about people who run for office and put a cowboy hat on and ride a horse and say, I'm a conservative, right?
No,
Like,
and there's a difference between the dupes and the Judases. The Judases
yeah.
are knowingly doing this, and the dupes are deceived.
Yes, yes. So it is crucial to understand because it also means that their primary country of loyalty was the USSR. They gave them their orders, including orders regarding religion and how to treat the religious. And this is really where I want to jump to. So Chairman Foster, twice
Can you give me a page number? Because I'm just
Oh,
following.
I'm so sorry. Yes, chapter or page 169.
Oh, how funny. I'm on that page.
So it's at the bottom of the page. Foster spoke candidly of American communist goals of creating a Soviet America. That was the title of his 1932 book, Towards Soviet America. And he says very clearly he's a patriot of Russia. You could say, I'm a patriot of the world. I'm a patriot of globalism. The future is there. Russia will win out and save the world. Emphatically agreeing with Stephens and Langston Hughes, the celebrated African-American poet, put one more S in the USA, so call it the USSA, to make it Soviet. Thrilled Hughes. Then USA, then we can, or whatever, that's repeating. Most were not qualified to be spies. So this is where they started to pull out these people. They said most weren't qualified to be spies, but those who were qualified were recruited through party channels made available to Soviet intelligence for classical espionage, agents of influence operations. And I think that's the place where you get the Judases. That agent of influence operations, or couriers. I really think the agent of influence is interesting because it just sounds like another word we use today, right? Influencer.
So,
yeah.
Well, I think it's fascinating because how do they gain influence? Because people think they're so nice,
right?
You know, that's how they're influential. Is like I said, they bring them coffee. Hey, do you need a ride? Hey, let's go here. They're really charismatic. You know, it's
extremely
not...
compassionate.
Yes,
extremely, like that is their whole. Yeah. Miss Rachel is a great example.
And it's it's hard to understand this mentality though, from you know, because you're like, oh, all the nice people are the mean guys for real. Like, that's not what I'm saying. No. I'm trying to say, how do you know somebody and understand their motivations? Because it's so hard for me to understand how you can pretend to be nice and knowingly have these nefarious plans, because they must. The Judases must, and the nice guys, they're just the dupes. Like, what's the difference and what's the motivation? What's the motivation?
Because they believe that we truly, everything that it's always projection. There was recently a study done about how the left thinks the right thinks about them and how the right thinks the left thinks about them. And if you truly believe that people hate you and want you exterminated, then you're going to fight like nobody's business.
Like you.
To stop them. Okay, yes, you're going to fight like me. But but it actually, the study shows that it tends to be leftists who think more that's why they use terms like genocide. You're going to do a mass genocide on us, right? So if they're really believing this, well, then they believe that they're justified. If they really think we're all Hitler or we're all fascists, then they believe anything's justified. So let's just take a look all the way back to 1930, an exchange between Hamilton Fish and Foster. Now, if I understand you, the workers in this country look upon the Soviet Union as their country. Is that right? The more advanced workers do. Look upon the Soviet Union as their country? Yes. They look upon the Soviet flag as their flag? The workers of this country and the workers of every country have only one flag. That is the red flag. That is the flag of the proletarian revolution. So they've been talking about this, again, since the 1930s. And if you look today at the DSA, it's workers of the world unite. So do you owe allegiance to the American flag? Well, what are we teaching our kids? We're teaching our kids they don't need to stand for the flag, right? There are kids who walk around the schools today and don't just during the Pledge of Allegiance, just to protest it. And what are we told to do? We're told to be tolerant of it.
Well, I think when you said they justify their activism, their extreme activism, because they sufficiently have the enemy in their mind. You are the enemy. You're trying to kill us. They have vilified, Trump or. And
well, they used the term fascist back then. They said if you're not a communist, you're a fascist. That's what they said back then.
But that's not even true. Those aren't polar
It doesn't
opposites.
matter.
But that's what they said. So
it doesn't matter. That's literally that is in this. I'm sure we'll get to it, but that they chose those terms. They don't care about truth. And I mean, if they did, they wouldn't have
or thinking skills. They have no thinking skills.
So they say that, right? Because these are the people who say that religion is the opiate of the masses. Now, I think it's a fair discussion to say, can religion manipulate people? 100%.
Okay, but
go ahead.
But here's why they said opiate is the religion of the masses, because he said that the poor class, like here's his narrow view and definition. The poor class is taught that they just have to get by and they'll have their reward in heaven.
Yes.
Well, that is not the religion that I practice. So that doesn't apply. It's not, you want to make life better for people right here, right now. You want to treat them kindly. You want to lift them up. You want to work hard. You want to grow the enjoyment of your life. It's not
I think it just comes down to hope. I think it just comes down to hope. You remove hope when you are nothing but materialist. And we talked about that last time, but this is an extremely materialist religion that would call themselves not religious, which is funny.
Go ahead. I looked up, I was just wondering what, if from a 1930s dictionary, what does opiate mean? Because I don't know what they say. And it says anything that induces rest or inaction, that which quiets uneasiness, which is the opposite of what they wanted, right, from the mouth.
Right.
So an opiate, it's like, okay, yeah, if my belief in God it creates an ease for me, an easiness, a feeling of peace, that's exactly what they didn't want. So even if you look up that word, it isn't it's not necessarily a slam. It's saying that you are unmovable for my cause because you're on this, they called it a narcotic, I guess, of God. But I'll take the God drug.
Right. Versus what they're offering, because that's always been my question. What are you offering that's better?
Deconstruction, because communism doesn't create anything. It deconstructs, it tears down, it annihilates. Everything connected with that is the opposite of ease or peace. I want to jump into that party.
Well, so I want to just take a look at this because, again, think about what the DSA platform is today, and you tell me how it's different than the communist. The Communist Party advocates the overthrow of capitalist system and the confiscation of social necessities of life, that is the basic industries and other industries of producing the means of livelihood for the people, by the property of individuals, personal belongings, and so on. No, that is in the sense of their personal property. And it is important to note here that not all communists would agree with this or be so generous as to allow everyone's personal belongings under a communist system. The communists who governed China under Mao, Cambodia under Pol Pot, North Korea under Kim family were woeful in their complete confiscation of the most basic personal belongings, from pots and pans to deodorant and toothpaste.
Well, it's funny because the word capitalist has been so misunderstood and vilified that I teach my kids, like just yesterday, we're reading the Something Step by Jews Being Taken to Russia. And so I'm like, what's a capitalist, guys? And I'm trying to get them to understand the definition so clearly. A capitalist is someone who believes that when you work for something, you get the reward. Like that's all it is. And it's like, and someone else, a socialist communist, means you work for it and you give it to someone else who may not have worked at all.
Well, and what I find interesting is that they, in these chapters, they do talk about how people who don't work at all are useless. So they're not even dealing with what we're dealing with today, in that we've got this entitled class. I mean, we have a class. Remember, Marx himself said, I'm not a Marxist. Right? But he did. but we have a class today who believes that work is oppressive. And then you've got the people saying for the Workers' Party. But then you have these people saying, for all of these different reasons, I should never have to work. I have this disability or this, handicap or this mental health issue. So I don't need to work. But those people, the communists, find those people completely disposable. So again,
because they don't work.
Right. So again, they're being used because their votes certainly matter right now. But in the end, they won't. Let's go back to Foster. So our party, he's asking about religion. Our party considers religion to be the opium of the people, as Karl Marx has stated, and we carry on propaganda for the liquidation of these prejudices amongst the workers. So Fish says, to be a member of the Communist Party, do you have to be an atheist? Foster says, in order to be, there is no formal requirement to this effect. Many workers join the Communist Party. Listen to this. It's so important, again, to what's happening in churches, especially with young people, but really everyone. Many workers join the Communist Party who still will have some religious scruples or religious ideas, but a worker who will join the Communist Party who understands the elementary principles of the Communist Party must necessarily be in the process of liquidating his religious beliefs. How many people do you know who are like, oh, I'm just going through this process of deconstruction? I've seen Bible studies where the women are supposed to, quote, get rid of anything that doesn't serve them. And before you know it, you've got either atheists or even women who are leaning into like the occult on purpose.
Well, and what goes further in what you just read is like, oh, and we're not worried because by the next generation or two, it will be gone. And
Yes.
they've been wiping it out, and they know it will go that way. So, and that's what we're seeing. That's what they're attacking people on the streets. What would prevent them from doing that if that's the highest good? If the highest good is to take down the enemy whom they have been taught to hate, then why wouldn't they do that?
Exactly. And we will get more into the teaching to hate as these chapters go on. But just in terms of the church thing, I think that's so important that people listen, because there are a lot of people who are maybe establishing their own church, or they're trying to break down the walls of any kind of, quote, judgmental, and just say, anything goes, open up the doors to anything. And it's not new. That's what was going on here. So Fish says, and the same thing would happen to them in this country that happens to them in Russia. So as stated before, workers would not be so imbued with their religious superstitions. He's asking about marriage. Foster's answers shock people to this day and probably still shocks it. It should not. This has been the standard communist view of religion since the time of Marx and Lenin. Again, I'm on page 173 here.
Thank you.
So on 175, our party believes in developing, this one got me too. Our party believes in developing the class consciousness of the workers to educate the workers to an understanding of their class interests, to brainwash them. And class consciousness, right? Well, now we have a million different kinds of consciousness, right? A million different, quote, ways of knowing. And I think that that's really important that people hear. So this, again, 1930s, our party believes in developing the class consciousness of the workers to educate the workers to an understanding of their class interest and to organize them to defend that interest, which inevitably brings them into conflict with the capitalist class and its whole system of ideology.
Well, it's funny because all those words, it was like, I would love to take that sentence and rewrite it to reflect what it actually is saying, because they use the term education, but what they're really saying is to propagandize and to dumb them down and
Indoctrination.
To brainwash.
Yeah, we want to brainwash these people. And that's what's happening now, because true education presents the sources, the cause and effect. It allows you to think and figure it out and to question and ask and talk with other people about it. But this is like, hey, if you don't believe how we tell you to believe, you're just a bigot. And you're just, and so, try not to be called a name. And that's the brainwashing.
Well,
that's
and also the whole also this to an understanding of their interests. Says who?
Mm-hmm. It's the opposite. It's the government's interests.
What we've gotten rid of is objective truth. And that is a big problem, because if it's subjective, it's just whatever I perceive. And when that becomes how these kids are, and I'm taking it back to school because this is what they're teaching. It's your truth. There's not a truth. So the target is gone. So if you're being brought up as a child to find out what's true in the world and there's no truth anymore, the target's been completely removed. Talk about discombobulating. and that's why it's so easy to dupe all of these people, young people especially, is because there is no truth to aim at. So anything goes. I believe this is why you're seeing an uptick of all these mental health issues, because when you remove a very clear picture, a direction that you should go for the greatest good of, boy, that sounded socialist, but
a standard or a norm. When you remove the ideas of standards or norms,
that, it caused some mental unease, and we are seeing that all over the place.
Yes. So. And when these kids are, or when one of these people are mentally broken, and then these people go on to commit some atrocity, it's excused. It's dumbed down.
It's what they were feeling.
Exactly.
Not thinking.
No. Feeling. And a feeling, anything goes with a feeling.
Yes. Yep. You can't blame someone because
when I talk to my friends that are, as they claim, democratic socialists, because that sounds nicer. That's kind of half American. I don't know, put the democratic word in there, but they will say, I always will approach them. So you're okay with giving up your house or opening your doors to whoever needs anything. And they're like, you know what? If they feel like they need it at the time, they can take whatever I want, whatever they want. And I just have a hard time believing that. I mean, they say it, but really?
Well, even do they believe that maybe for themselves? But do they believe that for other people? Would they have allowed the Jews to be taken from their homes and everything? Because, that's the best good. If people need it, they should be able to take it.
Yes, of course they would. That's why it's happened. That's how come from the very beginning of this whole mess, I was like, oh, I now know how Nazis are made.
Well, you can't believe it just for yourself, because they think, oh yeah, I believe this is fine. Okay, great. But your belief and enacting that belief wipes away all freedoms for all people. So if you really want the freedom to believe that people can just come in and take your house, then you can't have a system of government that does that, because then the people who feel like they need to stay in their house won't be able to.
And if you go back to his comments, he's saying, oh no, I don't think we should take personal belongings. And I'll have students who will say that socialism doesn't take your personal belongings. This is how people like Hassan Piker can be multimillionaires and say down with capitalism that made him a multimillionaire. So hypocrisy is rife through this whole thing. But I want to keep going. So the capitalist democracy, most assuredly, we stand for workers and farmers government, a government of producers. See, here's that part. So what happens to the people who don't want to work that we've created? The soft, not a government of exploiters. Again, what would you call the people who don't want to work?
It's an outright lie. It's a government of exploiters.
So the American capitalist government is built and controlled in the interest of those who own the industries. And we say that the government must be built and controlled by those who work in the industries and who produce. Again, ask that question. Ask that question to our massive welfare class. What do they intend to do with you in the long run? Because right now, absolutely, they want your vote. That's useful. But in the long run, is it?
Well, what do you think? I've never thought of that, like what they plan to do with the welfare class.
Well, let me take you to on page 173. I don't know if our pages are lining up, but it says under Pol Pot and North Korea, under the Kim family, were woeful in their complete confiscation of the most basic personal belongings, from pots and pans to deodorant and toothpaste. So that everything, not just the big things, but even in Castro's Cuba, for example, not even 100 miles from Key West, Florida, has likewise been brutal in its limitations on personal property, from private garden plots and fruit trees to fishing poles and boats. So this gets granular.
They get nothing. They get nothing. And people, that's the place where people say, well, it hasn't been done right yet. We're going to do it compassionately. Oh, really? You tell me. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm still sick and I can feel it. But you tell me where the compassion is in not saying the name of a person who's been shot for disagreeing with you.
Yes.
So you tell me where your compassion is and why I'm supposed to believe that when you chose to not allow students who witnessed that, the piece of a memorial.
Yeah.
Tell me exactly where your compassion is coming.
Yeah.
Tell me exactly where your compassion is coming when you say people shouldn't be allowed to have a voice, people shouldn't be allowed to talk, people shouldn't be allowed to shop if they don't do what the government tells them to their own bodies. So you tell me where the kindness, how are they going to treat people that they find, what was the word they used back then? They use essential. What are they going to do to the people that they don't find essential? What do you think? I know I get very passionate about this because it's so important. So here's where, so he says, are they opposed to the Republican form of government? Foster says, most assuredly, Fish says, and they desire to overthrow it. And he says, let me just read you a little something here. He says, the conquest of power by the proletariat does not mean peaceful capturing of ready-made bourgeois state machinery by means of a parliamentary majority. The bourgeoisie resort to every means of violence and terror. Again, they're projecting. Okay? So they say that they go to every means of violence and terror. The business owner goes to every means of violence and terror to safeguard and strengthen its predatory property and political domination. Like the feudal nobility of the past, the bourgeoisie cannot abandon its historical position to the new class without a desperate and frantic struggle. Hence, the violence of the bourgeoisie can only be suppressed by the stern violence of the proletariat.
Yes, it's the painting of the enemy, so it justifies your activism and your destruction.
And they did that very well. They set us up so well. We'll never be the same since COVID. It was so perfectly executed to divide us, to separate us, to have the people that weren't doing what they were supposed to do and the people that were doing what they were supposed to do. And I get so sad. We were having a discussion the other day about nothing has been the same since 9/11.
Yeah.
With travel and just moving around and feeling that freedom. It's gone. It's never returned. And then the COVID years, which is such a significant event that had so many ramifications for everything they're setting up, the fracturing of our culture. I mean, it's strong when you have people that villainize other people and they feel justified. And then we got to see what everyone was willing to do during that time. There's just so much to learn by what we went through and why it set us up to be so ripe to be duped.
Well, did we hear the word deplorable? That was before COVID, right? Because when Hillary Clinton ran, and she used the word deplorable.
People
at that point,
Trump,
at a basket of deplorables, right?
Yeah.
At that point, she decided that a certain group of her own American constituents, as she would have had us be, were less than.
Yeah.
And it was publicly perfectly acceptable to say that.
Completely.
I think she was the worst. I think that was the first one. I mean, we also had they cling to their guns and their religions as a side note that was kind of said again to disparage a group of people who cling to guns, which keep us safe, and religion, which seems extremely aligning with these communist views to me.
Sure, close the churches.
Right. And then we got to those points. But at first, the first thing is that we needed to hear somebody high up and respected in what we thought were politics say some of us were less than others.
Wow.
And when you think about that, and then you think about where Hillary Clinton studied from, I believe she wrote her thesis on the guy who wrote the other book, Rules for Radicals.
Saul
Alinsky, right? So and I believe he's listed in this book later on.
Well,
so
you know, it's funny. It's because you have all this whole media, like we have this huge amount of peer pressure through the media, through social media, through whatever. And I remember when I wouldn't wear the mask at church, and after we were able to take them off, and I still remembered who would wear it and who wouldn't wear it. And I wondered if people liked me or if they thought I was crazy. And if even in my own mind, when I wanted to be unified, when I just wanted to let it go, I still remembered, that division, like how do you escape that constructed division of people so that you're not seeing them as the non-maskers and the maskers? And because my husband would wear a mask because he wanted, and so I'd sit there, no mask, and he'd wear a mask. What I'm saying is we internalize it whether we want to.
You have to realize it. The way is always knowledge is power. That's why I do these book clubs. Because when you realize that you're being used, it's easier to have true empathy. It's easier to go, oh, they don't know. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. The lens, we all have this new lens to look through. And if you realize this is a lens, kind of like a fog, on your lens that you have to clean off. And whenever you don't see people as people and you see them as them, I'm not talking pronouns in that way, but when you see them as just others, you have to check yourself because you've dehumanized them, which is exactly what's being done to so many people.
And it's intentional. You guys, you have to understand that this playbook is everywhere now. And we get into it because it's going to go into what the press has done, even back then, what the press has done, and who really started the press off of a cliff. But this is by design. The stuff that's going on in our schools that are to teach our kids to be kinder is about othering.
And to feelings are more important than truth.
Yes.
That's a very dangerous one. It doesn't mean feelings shouldn't be considered.
Right.
It just means there's truth that you can't discount. If someone hits my child and because they were frustrated, it's not okay to hit my child.
Right.
The frustration is real, yes. But the strategy of hitting my child will never be okay. So
Right.
for some reason, we've decided that the feeling is equal to whatever strategy is chosen. They're two separate things.
Yeah, the ends justify the means. It's like, and that,
Right.
I mean, I guess that's separate, but
There was a teacher. Did you see in the news last night or yesterday that she gave 50%? So she failed some students because they never turned in any work, and they fired her.
Yeah.
where?
I don't know. I don't recall, but I thought that's just the perfect thing, is because while those kids didn't do what was required of them, this is what you need to do to pass this class. They didn't, because of whatever reason they felt that they couldn't. They felt.
Yeah.
Mhm. And that's another tactic, is to destroy merit. There is no
For sure.
achievement. And when you
Yeah.
have a people who do not achieve, who do not want to, expect that they can't, they don't have the skills to see through this annihilation and destruction of our society and to organize standing up against it. So you want the dumbest people possible.
Sure. Easy to move. Easy to move.
I'm just asking the people if they have any thoughts as I keep going on with where we were. Okay, so
And I'll have to get off in 6 minutes.
I
just
know.
FYI.
I know. I want to hit this. I honestly think we're only getting through chapter 7, but that's okay. I may tackle 8 and 9 midweek just to get there, because I can go longer. But okay, so the enemy of religion. Now, Earl Browder, I really appreciate him and everybody else who comes through, because they all change. They all realize what a toxic mess this whole thing was. And so they become really the whistleblowers of what was going on. But I think it's important that we hit with, conversely, Browder understood that religion being a matter of spirit. So the issue with spirit is then you believe in something higher, was a natural foe to communism, which says the highest is the government, which rejected the spiritual in favor of the spirit of the strictly material. There you go. Religion does not fit into a dialectical materialist system of thought, affirmed Browder, reaching for a more belligerent Lenin-like language. It's the enemy of it. So no, you cannot. It is impossible to adopt both communism or, as people want to call it, socialism and Christianity.
As if
it's impossible.
One is preheat and one's cook.
Right. Exactly. And they changed it. So Stalin actually said, we're going to start calling ourselves socialists because it has less of an aftertaste to these people.
Do you know Foster's background? You always have to look up all these communist backgrounds. So they have the most incredibly devastating childhoods.
Oh, really?
Tell us.
Yeah. So Foster, he was born in Massachusetts, 1881, very poor, just impoverished Irish neighborhood.
Maybe that's why he wanted to go after the Catholic Church.
Maybe. I mean, it's so important to look at these leaders that are leading movements and really look, because obviously our foundation is our childhood, right? And what we decide, what we grow from is the soil. If you think of a garden metaphor, it's the soil, and whatever is in the soil produces the plant. So you have to really look at his background. I just was looking as a sidebar. I haven't read through it yet, but street gangs, violence, and just extreme poverty. So life's not fair, and that's where that's the soil.
And I think that's where the compassion comes from. Some people have their compassion because they come from extreme privilege and they think, I need to care for these other people. But if you are so arrogant, you have zero humility in the way that you care. You don't say, what do you need? You find people. This is what really upsets me, is you find pawns and you tell them, I'm going to take care of you. I think this is a great way to wrap it up because it ties in relevantly to this week. You find somebody and you say, I'm going to take care of you as long as you follow my instructions to a T. So take, for example, the Cambridge professor, Arday, brought up these people, thought that they were so compassionate because they are the intellectual elite. And so they take this person in, and this person, he's only, again, looking from his view. And unfortunately, we don't know if he was crazy or just a really horrific liar. But he's created another lens of oppression, that he sees the world only through that lens of oppression. That is his entire business. But these other people who look at him and go, poor you, how can we care for you? And that doesn't help. It doesn't help. Instead, his cancerous views, whether they were a mental health issue or whether they were something that elevated him, are pushed forward onto more people. And I think that is how we get our dupes and our suckers, right? I mean, it might be a big round, but I think that's how we get those dupes and those suckers, because we look at he filled a need. He filled a need. I get to be compassionate because I'm taking care of you. Instead of telling him,
they need purpose.
They need, exactly.
Everyone needs a purpose. And that's a lot what we don't have in such an affluent society, is we don't have purpose. And so
and this guy becomes the president of the ACLU, I believe, right?
Yeah, which is a commie front.
Yes, it's a commie front, still is, but he becomes the head of it.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we look at him and think you're vile, I do anyways. I look at him and I think, this is vile. You're so deceptive in what you're doing. But at the same time, I really appreciate, Joelle, your let's look at where they're coming from and try to understand that. Because if we stop understanding, we will dehumanize them.
Which doesn't make it okay, or doesn't make it, I can understand where he came from, so everything he's saying and teaching is good. That doesn't make it good. It just gives us an understanding and a compassion. But there's still things that are true regardless of what he thinks or feels.
So. And we do need to take care of the poor. I mean, that's like, or this stuff happens, it comes back to bite us. Like,
but what way? The question is, what way do we take care of
the churches?
Exactly. We have to choose. We have to go into our neighborhoods. We have to serve. Like,
we also need to talk and listen. And you need to be able to discern who's going to use you.
Yeah.
Who's going to say, hey, I would love to have the soil to plant a garden and to let all of the neighborhood kids come and learn how to garden. Lifting. And who's going to say, hey, why don't you just give me reparations? Not lifting.
Yeah.
So it's hard and honest conversations that isn't part of communism, because communism is about taking
and destroying.
And we need to build relationships, real relationships, not based on views, but just based on the ability to communicate with each other and to respect differences of opinion. And
COVID took that away. COVID took that.
Yeah, everything is vilified, and that's the first thing of communism is you paint the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not listening to guidelines. They told us guidelines, or you're putting me in danger. You're making me sick. You're going to kill me.
Right.
That's
safety culture.
And none of it was true. But that's really strong, that, oh my gosh, you're willing to kill me. That is how that was viewed by those that believed that what the government is saying was true. Is you're deciding that I'm not worthy. You were willing to kill me. That's how people that were wearing masks and taking medication, taking the jabs and stuff. That's pretty strong. I could see why someone would be really upset.
Yeah, they're painting the enemy. You're out to kill me.
And what's happening now is that upset is yet another tool, because more and more people on this side of things are leaning this way because I want mine. We've been betrayed, you know, and it's just, it all goes towards one thing because it's all multiple arms of infiltration. And that's what we'll talk about next time, is the outstretched hand, arm, hand, got it? But because it's really important to understand they were meticulous in how they got into every single organization.
Well,
they played the role.
They actually didn't have a great experience after all with the Catholic Church.
Right. I know. I wish that's where I was hoping
after the Methodists, right? And
right.
All the other.
I wonder if I can get to just what he says. Because my gosh, the guy who's named, he sounds like he's an actor. What is his name? But he was a radio host. Do you know who I'm talking about? He's in this chapter. But anyways, he's a radio host, and he tells them exactly where they can shove communism.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I was cheering when I heard him talk.
Yeah, I was trying to look up, I know we're wrapping up here, but I was trying to look up what the current Pope says about socialism and communism. And they do reject it, but also reject capitalism. So
yeah.
Interesting. I believe in conscious capitalism. I don't know how much of that we have, but we do with small businesses maybe.
Yeah. I mean, so you get the Pope Pius going to FDR and saying, you have no idea about communism. And FDR tells him what all of us have always heard. There's nothing to see here. What are you worried about? My focus is fascism.
Yeah.
That's what he tells him.
I know.
And, you know, and FDR is well before any of us. So,
and
so that's what they've been saying.
Yeah, it's so insidious. Like, you need to fear the thing that most people are adopting. I don't know that there were any fascists in America. Like, I mean, maybe there were, but like, who were supporting, but
yeah. I don't know where that is, but for those of you following, I will find that piece and I will put it in my community notes on my YouTube channel. If you're not watching from YouTube, please go there and make a comment, and please set your calendars. We'll be back again next Saturday for more of this discussion. It's going to take longer than I thought to make it through, but that is the way it works when you've got opinionated people who want to get a lot of thoughts out there. So thank you so much for joining me, ladies.
Okay. Bye.
I mean it in the best way. Opinionated in the best way.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Love you.
That's the truth, because it's how I feel.
Okay.